And today we are reading Chapter 9 of Absolutely Truly. With 2 weeks to go until Winter Festival, there was a change in the air in Pumpkin Falls. It wasn't the January thaw, that still hadn't arrived yet, even though the calendar now said it was February. It was more of a sense of anticipation, a crackle of excitement that you could feel around town, at school and in the shops as people talked about the big weekend. Aunt True says Winter Festival is Pumpkin Falls' answer to homecoming. She says people who grew up here or used to live here often come back for it. Although, if you ask me, which nobody ever does, I could think of way better reasons to spend a weekend than stuck in a freezing cold Pumpkin Falls, New Hampshire. My math grade crept up a few notches, which pleased my father and made me a little more secure about my spot on the swim team. At practice, I did planks and push-ups and sit-ups and swam endless laps in preparation for our first race. The Pumpkin Falls youth swim team always kicked off its season with a face-off against Thornton during Winter Festival. Everywhere I ever lived, there was always an arch rival, and for Pumpkin Falls, Thornton was it. And everywhere I ever lived, it's always the coach's job to get his or her team whipped into a frenzy over this rival. Coach Maynard droned on every day at practice about how we need to do our best and believe in ourselves and get out there and show Thornton what we're made of, blah, blah, blah. I'd all heard it before. Casting a shadow over all of this, at least for me, was the bookshop's make or break deadline. I wish I could be more like Aunt True, who sailed ahead thinking positively and planning for the future. But the spike in sales after Carson Dawson's TV feature on Pumpkin Falls had leveled off, and with no Charlotte's Web in sight, I didn't see how we were going to make it. I saw all the long hours my father still spent behind closed doors with the accountant, and how he worried constantly over things called profit margin and cash flow. The other shadow was cotillion. I was so not looking forward to the exhibition dance, even though Scooter and I were doing marginally better in class. This was mostly because Scooter had stopped goofing off. He caught wind of Calhoun's extra practice sessions, which he thought Calhoun was paying for, and that had lit a fire under his competitive streak. "Oh, good. The kittens are here," said Jasmine as she and Cha-Cha and I took off our jackets and piled them onto the bookshop door. Ever since the remodel, Lovejoy's Books have become Belinda Winchester's home away from home. She and at least one kitten showed up pretty much every afternoon now, right around the time Aunt True took her mini pumpkin whoopie pies out of the oven. When Saturday rolled around, though, the treats and Belinda arrived even earlier for story hour. Cha-Cha and Jasmine had volunteered to help Aunt True and me on this particular Saturday. Plus, my friends were eager to check out the new shipment of jewelry. They really liked all the new stuff that Aunt True had started to stock as a part of her scheme to add more income streams. The three of us helped ourselves to some of the whoopie pies that were waiting on the sales counter. My father emerged from the office to grab one too. He still complains about the expense, but I've noticed he's first in line when Aunt True brings them from her apartment. "She never leaves," he grumbled, casting a baleful eye on Belinda Winchester, who settled into an armchair over by the front of the window with her latest paperback from the mystery swap. "And she never buys anything either." "So, it's her happy place," my aunt replied from her perch on a stepladder behind the counter. She fiddled with the clothesline she was anchoring to the ceiling. "Pass me a thumbtack, would you truly?" Cha-Cha and Jasmine and I poked around the pile of literary t-shirts. Eat, sleep, read, I heart Mr. Darcy, shirts like that were heaped up by the cash register waiting to be strung up. The t-shirts were one of the new sidelines Aunt True had decided that we should stock up. "You're turning us into a general store," my father said, picking up one and grimacing at the slogan. "So many books, so little time," the t-shirt read. "If it brings in customers, why not?" Aunt True replied cheerfully. "Mom and I think the sidelines have really livened things up." Cha-Cha and Jasmine agree. They drop in often after school to now check out the new stuff on display, from cool little notepads and pens, to tote bags, to stationery, mugs, jewelry, locally made soaps and candles. We've started stocking maple syrup and maple candy from the Freeman's farm, too. "Have you girls seen Truly's new Valentine's Day window?" Aunt True asked. "It's not mine exactly," I said. "My aunt and I had worked on it together last night after dinner." "You did the lion's share of the work," Aunt True replied. I followed Cha-Cha and Jasmine as they went over to the front of the store to check it out. "Sweet," said Cha-Cha. Across the top of the window was a banner with "We Heart Happy Endings" on it, and I taped red construction paper hearts and cupids on the glass. The display table was covered in a floor-length red tablecloth piled high with things that my aunt and I gathered from the far-flung corners of the store. Valentine's Day cards, a red leather-bound copy of Shakespeare's sonnets, heart-shaped chocolates and soaps, a pink mug with white hearts on it, pink notepads, pink sticky notes, pink pens, everything we could think of that celebrated love and romance. There were piles of books, too. Books like Pride and Prejudice, Cinderella, Jane Eyre, and just a whole bunch more. I love happy endings, too, sighed Jasmine. They're so romantic. Cha-Cha and I looked at each other and grinned. Here are the new necklaces I was telling you about, I told my friends. The one made of Scrabble tiles, see? There's a letter on one side and a design on the other. Cute, said Cha-Cha. I have a ballerina on mine, said Pippa, emerging from her favorite hideout under the table. And P is for Pippa. Aunt True gave it to me. Jasmine and Cha-Cha fussed over the necklace, and of course, Pippa let them each take a turn wearing it. Then she disappeared back under the table again. Ooh, look at this one. Jasmine held up a little tile with a picture of a bear reading a book. Aunt True was wearing one just like it in honor of Story Hour. So, all systems a go for tomorrow? I asked my friends and they nodded. I'm sleeping at Jazz's tonight, Cha-Cha told me, and my parents said I could go to church with her tomorrow. Perfect. We'll all be there. Calhoun's coming too. Jasmine looked over at Cha-Cha. How are his private lessons going? He's making progress, but he's not exactly Romeo on the dance floor, Cha-Cha replied, and the three of us giggled. It was going to be hard to keep the lid on Calhoun's real name. The bell over the door jangled, and Mrs. Abramowitz came in with Baxter. I pointed to where Pippa was hiding, and he dove under the table to join her. Mrs. Abramowitz took off her coat. She looked like she just breezed in from a dance competition. She often looked that way. She has thick, curly, dark hair like Cha-Cha's, but Mrs. Abramowitz is always swept into an elegant updo. And unlike my mother, who dresses mostly in jeans these days now that she's a college student again, or Aunt Drew, who dresses, well, like a parrot, sequins are a staple in Cha-Cha's mother's wardrobe. Even her snow boots have high heels. I don't know about you girls, but I am ready for spring, she said, unwinding her scarf. Where's that January thaw when you need it? She glanced around the store. Is your mother here, truly? I shook my head. She's coming in later. We're driving down to Manchester this afternoon. Let me guess. Dress shopping? Cha-Cha's mother smiled at me. Your mother told me you've grown another inch since you moved to Pumpkin Falls. There are really no secrets in this town. That's the best part of Cotillion, I think, Cha-Cha's mother continued. It's such fun to have an excuse to get all dressed up. Not really, I thought. I don't do dresses. They're way up there on my list that I am not good at. Maybe Mrs. Abramowitz saw the worried look on my face because she slipped an arm around Cha-Cha and smiled at Jasmine and me. You girls are all going to shine, no matter what you wear. Over at the sales counter, Aunt True pinned the last of the t-shirts on the clothesline, then climbed down from the stepladder and picked up the old-fashioned handbell she bought next door at Mahoney's Antiques. Story Hour, she called, ringing it loudly. Pippa and Baxter popped out from under the table and dashed into the children's room. Mrs. Abramowitz and my friends and I followed. So did Belinda Winchester, who was quickly surrounded by an admiring crowd of young kitten lovers. She's like Mary Poppins or Mrs. Pigglewiggle or something, Aunt True said, watching her. My dad looked mystified. Who? Aunt True sighed. Never mind. My father is so not a bookworm. Initially, my father had been worried that Belinda might scare kids away, and more important, their parents, who were paying customers, after all. But she hadn't. In fact, she kind of turned into our store mascot. And of course it helps that she almost always has a furry creature or two with her. Dad wasn't thrilled about allowing pets into the bookshop, but kittens have proved to be a huge hit. They're free advertising, Aunt True had argued, and it's true. Some people, especially those with little kids, drop by the store now just to see the kittens, and most of them always end up buying something. Girls, why don't you go ahead and pass these around, said my aunt, handing us each a plate of mini whoopie pies. We dutifully distributed the snacks, which disappeared in nothing flat. The silver dollar-sized treats are almost as popular with the Story Hour crowd as the kittens are. Are these the same ones you brought in last week? Aunt True asked Belinda, peering into the basket beside her chair. Maybe, Mrs. Winchester replied slyly. Aunt True frowned. These are orange, though. I feel like last week's kittens were gray. Belinda Winchester drew a large cotton handkerchief from her pocket and blew her nose loudly. How many do you have exactly? Handkerchiefs? No, kittens. A slow smile spread across Mrs. Winchester's face. Hundreds of cats. Thousands of cats. Millions and billions and trillions of cats, Aunt True finished laughing. Perfect choice for today's story hour, she winked at me. Change of plans, she said, then went over to the picture book section and plucked a slim volume of one of the shelves. Holding it, she asked, "Who knows the name of this book?" A flock of little hands flew in the air. "Baxter?" said Aunt True. "Millions of Cats," he replied, and she nodded her head. "That's right. It's Millions of Cats by Wanda Gag." Aunt True sat down, and the little kids crowded around her as she started to read. The bell over the front door rang again, and I glanced over to see Ella Bello come in. My heart sank as I realized that my father had vanished. Again. He had an uncanny way of doing that whenever Ella showed up. It was up to me to man the sales counter. "Back in a sec," I whispered to my friends and crossed over the store to greet her. "Can I help you?" "May I help you?" she corrected. Whatever, I thought, but aloud I replied meekly, "May I help you?" Adding "ma'am" for good measure and plastering a smile on my face. Paying customers are paying customers. There was a burst of laughter from the children's room, and the postmistress and I looked over to see what the commotion was. Aunt True and Cha-Cha and Jasmine had the kids on their feet now, and they were all singing Three Black Cats to the tune of Three Blind Mice as they marched around Belinda's chair. Ella Bello sniffed. Ugh, so unsanitary. I wasn't sure if she was talking about Story Hour or Belinda Winchester, or the kittens, or what. "I'm sure it's a violation of our town's health code to have so many animals on the premises," she said, casting a sour look at Miss Maple, who was sleeping peacefully in her dog bed on the floor below the sales counter. I didn't reply, grateful that Memphis was upstairs in Aunt True's apartment. Ella Bello was another item on the list of things my aunt's cats did not like. "You left a message that my special order was in." Ella picked up one of the flyers stacked by the cash register and scrutinized it while I retrieved her book from behind the sales. I looked at its titles. Second Acts, Starting a New Career in Your Golden Years. So maybe the rumors really are true. Maybe Ella really was thinking about retiring. "Grand reopening celebration, the postmistress said, peering down her knife blade nose at me. "Yes, ma'am." She waved the flyer. "You're holding it during Winter Festival?" I nodded. That was Aunt True's idea, of course. She wanted to do something splashy to spotlight the bookshop's makeover. "The paper says they're expecting a record crowd since it's the centennial," Aunt True had told my father, who was, as usual, skeptical of her plan, mostly because he didn't want to spend any money. "The bed and breakfast in all the motels along Route 4 are booked solid. What better time to show off our store?" Ella Bello frowned as she peered over her black-framed glasses at the schedule of events. In addition to next weekend's Valentine's Day Story Hour, featuring special guest star Mr. Henry from the local library, there was a love poetry open mic night, prize drawings and giveaways all weekend, special gift bags with all purchases, cooking demonstration by Franklin and Annie's mother with maple syrup from the Freeman farm, and a reading from a book signing by Augustus Savage, a.k.a. Augustus Wilde, a.k.a. Captain Romance. Ella Bello arched an ink-black eyebrow at me. "Don't you think you might have bitten off more than you can chew? Do you really think that visitors will want to bother with all of this?" I stared at her. This was the real reason that she'd come in. The old crow was in a fishing mode, not a shopping mode, snooping around for gossip about her family's business as usual. Well, I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction of leaving with anything. "Of course they will," I gushed in reply. "Business has been fantastic since Hello Boston. Thank you so much, by the way, for telling Carson Dawson about us. That was brilliant." Ella seemed taken aback. I see. Well, oopsie. Sorry, guys. Lights came off. "I see. Well, that's good news then," she said, and after paying for her books, she beat a hasty retreat to the door. It was almost as if she was hoping for bad news, I thought. But why? What possible difference could our bookstore struggles make to a soon-to-be retired postmistress? Why does Ella Bello care so much? What just happened in this chapter? What thoughts do you have in your head about why Ella Bello's poking around? And what sort of feelings do you have in your heart because of it?